Okay, let's unpack this. If you're following AI news, it feels like trying to drink from a fire hose.
Oh, absolutely.
Every single week, there's another jaw-dropping headline, and frankly, it's overwhelming. So our mission today is simple. We're going to filter out the noise.
Right.
We're doing a deep dive into the 2025 AI Index report to pull out the really crucial metrics, the surprising economic insights and the challenges that you need to know about right now.
Exactly. We're moving past the theoretical hype and all the demos into what is actually happening, tangibly across performance, investment, and I think critically, safety.
Right.
And if there's one big takeaway, it's this. AI isn't a story of what's possible anymore. It's a massive, accelerating story of scaling and the governance challenges that come with it. We have to get a handle on this now.
I think for me, the most shocking part of the report is just the sheer velocity of it all.
Yeah.
The speed of progress. It's just dizzying. Researchers create these incredibly complex new tests.
Designed to be almost impossible.
Exactly. Impossible for current models, and then AI systems just master them almost instantly.
That pace is quantified perfectly by what the report calls the benchmark explosion. And you should think of these benchmarks as really rigorous, multidisciplinary exams for AI.
We're not talking about Trivial Pursuit here.
No, not at all. We're talking about specialized scientific knowledge, complex problem solving. The report focused on 3 big ones introduced last year: MMMU, GPQA, and SWE bench.
And these are supposed to be hard.
Super hard. They're meant to require sophisticated, nuanced intelligence. And yet, just 1 year later, performance scores they jumped dramatically.
Yeah.
We saw increases of 18.8, 48.9, and a staggering 67.3 percentage points.
67, wow.
These systems aren't just improving, they're consuming the entire curve at a pace we've just rarely seen in any field.
And what's fascinating is that the speed isn't just staying in the lab, right? It translates directly to real-world capabilities that you can see.
Mm-hmm.
Like the progress in video generation. It's been monumental. Runway's Gen 3, for instance, is now creating photorealistic humans, blurring that line between synthetic and real even more.
And it's not just creative stuff. The models are getting surprisingly good at very in cases where language model agents actually outperformed human experts in specialized programming tasks.
But with a time limit, right?
Right, when the time budget was limited. It just shows how fast these models can generate and execute functional code.
So if that's the capability, the next question is obvious. What's powering this? It has to be a massive commitment of resources.
It's the relentless scaling race. That's the engine. The amount of resources being poured in is just what's driving these gains. The report's data shows that the training compute for these big models, it doubles about every 5 months.
Every 5 months.
And the data set sizes, the information they're swallowing, doubles every 8 months. You have to feed the beast to make it grow this fast.
But I always hear that scaling is just, throwing more data at the problem. Is that what's happening? Or are we seeing smarter techniques now, something that unlocks deeper reasoning?
That's a great point. The old strategy is kind of hitting its limits. So now researchers are developing new reasoning paradigms. A perfect example is test time compute, which we saw in models like OpenAI's O1.
Okay, what is that? Test time compute.
So instead of just spitting out an answer, the model is designed to sort of reason iteratively. It debates with itself. It searches through different solution paths before it lands on a final output. It's buying time to think deeper.
So they're literally making the AI pause and deliberate, like a person solving a really tough puzzle.
Precisely. And the results are just phenomenal. Look at how O1 did on an International Mathematical Olympiad qualifying exam. It scored 74.4%.
74. And what was GPT-4's score?
It was 9.3%.
Whoa. Okay, so that's a whole different level of reasoning.
It's a fundamentally different capability.
But that's 74%. It sounds like a cheat code for intelligence.
Yeah.
There has to be a trade-off in the real world. Intelligence is never free, right?
No, it is definitely not. The big trade-off is cost and speed. That enhanced slow burn reasoning in O1 is nearly 6 times more expensive to run and 30 times slower than GPT-4o.
30 times slower.
Yeah. So that's a critical insight for anyone looking at deployment. The most capable systems are not the most efficient, not by a long shot. They require a huge premium.
That really clarifies the difference between, a high score on a test and something you can actually use in real time.
Exactly.
Okay, so if progress is all about resource scaling, the next question is, Who has the resources? Where is this global race actually heading? Let's talk geopolitics.
The global race is getting really intense, but it's a fascinating story of quantity versus quality. The U.S. absolutely leads in quantity and in capital. In 2024, U.S. institutions produced 40 notable AI models.
And China.
China produced 15.
Oh.
And all of Europe combined produced just 3.
And the money gap is it's immense. The amount of cash the U.S. is pouring in is staggering.
It is. U.S. private AI investment hit $109.1 billion in 2024. That is nearly 12 times higher than China's $9.3 billion. So the U.S. has the volume, the cash, the number of frontier models.
But, and this seems to be a huge but in the report, China is closing the quality gap, right? They're being more efficient.
Exactly. Despite that huge investment gap, their models are converging on performance. If you look at major benchmarks like MMLU and Human Eval, the performance difference between the top US and Chinese models, it shrank from double digits in 2023 to near parity in 2024.
So they're getting more bang for their buck.
A lot more. And what's more, China continues to lead in the long game of foundational tech. They account for 69.7% of all AI patents granted globally.
That performance convergence, it feeds right into what we're seeing in corporations. Businesses are not waiting around anymore. They're adopting what exists right now.
The market has totally crossed the chasm. The data says 78% of organizations are now using AI in at least one business function. That's up from 55% just the year before.
And generative AI specifically.
That more than doubled. It jumped from 33% to 71%. This isn't a niche thing anymore. It's becoming standard operating procedure.
And this widespread adoption leads us to what I think is the single biggest economic aha moment of the entire report. This idea that AI acts as a productivity equalizer.
This is so counterintuitive. I mean, for the last couple of years, we've all been worried that AI would just augment the already highly skilled workers.
Right, that it would make the best even better and leave everyone else behind.
Pull the top further from the bottom, yeah.
But the report says the exact opposite is happening.
It completely flips the script. Look at the customer support study they highlighted. Low-skill workers, the ones without specific training or years of experience, they saw a staggering 34% gain in productivity with AI assistance. It raised their floor dramatically.
Wow. Let's just sit with that. A 34% productivity increase for the lowest skilled group. And meanwhile, the gain for the high-skilled workers was, what's the phrase?
Indistinguishable from zero.
Indistinguishable from zero. It just forces you to ask, is AI's biggest economic impact less about helping the experts and more about boosting the base performance of the entire workforce?
It changes the whole conversation. It shifts the narrative from replacement to empowerment, at least for now, in certain roles. It's a huge insight.
A massive finding. But despite all this incredible speed and adoption we've discussed, the report also makes it crystal clear we've hit a plateau in complex reasoning.
The systems are fast, but they're not universally smart. Not yet. The old reliable tests like MMLU and the math benchmark GSM-8K, they're saturated. Models ace them. So researchers are forced to keep creating harder and harder tests.
Tests that are basically designed for failure just to find the limits.
Exactly. Tests that require abstract thinking, multi-step deduction, planning. And if you look at the top scores on these really tough frontier tests like Humanities Last Exam or HLE, right?
Top scores are still stuck at just 8.80%. And frontier math, which is for incredibly complex math, it only solves 2% of the problems. So even the fancy systems still struggle with genuine complex reasoning.
And planning specifically seems to be the Achilles heel. You know, generating a sequence of actions to reach a goal. That's a fundamental part of intelligence.
They absolutely struggle with it, especially with combinatorial problems, where the number of possible solutions just explodes. The PlanBench benchmark tests exactly this, and even the advanced O1 model on problems requiring 20 or more steps, it only solved 23.6% of them.
So that's a huge warning sign. Models still lack that general multi-step logical capacity you'd need for any high-stakes autonomous application.
Which brings us right to agentic AI, the idea of models acting on their own in the real world. The promise feels so close, but the report seems to be screaming that the real-world performance just isn't there.
Why is that gap so big? Well, the field is much further along in theory than in practice. I mean, sure, AI agents can do amazing things in really niche tasks like the report mentions writing custom high-performance computing components faster than humans.
So they can do one tiny specific thing perfectly.
Perfectly. But they fall apart when the real world gets messy. The Visual Agent Bench, or VAB metric, proves this. The top model, GPT-4o, gets an overall success rate of just 36.2%.
36%.
And the index authors are pretty blunt about it. They say current models are far from ready for direct deployment in agentic settings. The real world is just too complex for their planning abilities right now.
Okay, let's shift to what might be the most sobering section of this whole report. Responsible AI. Because the technical progress is just zooming ahead, but the guardrails, the safety, it feels like it's lagging way behind.
That disconnect is the central tension of the whole report. And what's really concerning is the lack of standardization in safety evaluations. For capability, developers mostly agree on the benchmarks, the math tests, the reasoning tests. But for responsible AI,
Things like bias, toxicity.
exactly. For those things, there is no consensus on which benchmarks to use.
So we can compare Model A and Model B on geometry, but we can't reliably compare their safety risks side by side.
That's it. This lack of standards makes any kind of systemic risk assessment incredibly difficult. Now, to be fair, there was some good news. We did see transparency improve. The Foundation Model Transparency Index score went up from 37% to 58% in about 6 months.
So companies are getting a little better at disclosing their methods, even if they're still hiding the training data and copyright stuff.
Right. But let's get to the most disturbing finding in this section: the perils of scaling bias. I think most of us assume that if you give a model more data, you'd average out the hidden biases.
Dilute them, yeah. But the report shows that scaling can actually amplify bias. This is huge.
It is the most sobering finding in the entire report. It just upends a core assumption. Researchers found that when vision language models scaled up their training data from 400 million to 2 billion samples, racial biases were amplified.
So more flawed data leads to more biased outcomes, not less.
Not just more, but more strongly biased outcomes.
Give us the specific data point on that, the one that really hits home.
The specific example is, well, it's powerful. In the larger VITL models, the ones fed the bigger data sets, Black and Latino men were disproportionately classified as criminals. And crucially, the probability of that classification increased up to 69% as the dataset size grew.
Wow. Let's just let that sink in.
Yeah.
If you feed the model a data set that reflects deep societal inequities, scaling it up doesn't dilute the poison, it hardens the bias right into the code.
And it goes beyond that. It extends to implicit bias in LLMs generally. When tested across 21 stereotype categories, the report showed that these biases tend to increase as models scale. It reinforces societal stereotypes, like associating negative terms with Black individuals or favoring men for leadership roles.
And beyond bias, we're seeing totally new types of systemic security threats emerging. The number of reported AI-related incidents hit a record high of 233 in 2024.
That's a 56% increase over 2023.
And we need to talk about something that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction: infectious jailbreaks.
It's a frightening new vulnerability in multi-agent systems.
Explain that. What is an infectious jailbreak?
Researchers found that if you inject just one single adversarial image, one compromised piece of data, it can trigger an uncontrolled cascade of harmful behavior. This digital wildfire spread exponentially across a network of up to 1 million interconnected LVA 1.5 agents.
In how many steps?
Between 27 and 31 rounds of interaction.
So you compromise one tiny agent, and the whole system becomes vulnerable to a systemic failure. It's like a highly contagious computer virus spreading through a network of minds.
That's the perfect analogy. And the authors stress that right now, no practical containment strategies exist for this. It's a severe systemic risk.
And finally, on the societal front, misinformation. 60 incidents across 15 countries in 2024 related to elections.
And the threats are getting more nuanced than just simple deepfakes. You have concepts like the liar's dividend.
The ability to deny real evidence by just claiming it's a fake.
Exactly. It erodes trust in everything. And the report also mentioned the threat of hyper-personalized AI in campaigns, which can reduce a voter's cognitive autonomy.
Right. We saw examples where campaigns micro-targeted individuals with messages tailored to their precise fears or preferences, kind of bypassing rational thought.
Yeah, potentially influencing voter choices on a massive scale.
So when you put it all together,
Yeah.
what does it all mean?
It means the 2025 AI Index presents a technology that is just defined by paradox. It's wildly advanced. I mean, 96% on a clinical knowledge medical exam, getting recognized for Nobel Prize-worthy science, making autonomous vehicles safer in some cases.
And yet at the same time, it's so fragile. It can't do basic multi-step planning. It amplifies bias when you scale it. and it's vulnerable to these infectious jailbreaks.
It's a fundamental paradox. The smarter the model gets at math, the more pronounced its social biases can become. The speed of progress means we have to focus not just on what AI can do next, but how we manage its inherent trade-offs.
Speed versus accuracy, scaling versus bias.
Ex-
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you to chew on. The data shows that scaling data sets sometimes amplifies hidden societal biases, and that more complexity comes with higher costs and slower speeds.
So given that fundamental trade-off, what do we prioritize right now? Do we keep pushing scaling for raw capability and maximum speed? Or do we have to intentionally slow down to make sure we're prioritizing accuracy, safety, and fairness? That's the real choice we're facing as this next generation of models comes online.